Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when your heart carries a desire so deep, so personal, so sacred that you barely speak it aloud. It may be a longing for restoration in your family, a breakthrough in your finances, healing in your body, clarity for your future, or simply peace in the middle of chaos. You may have prayed about it for years. You may have wept over it in the quiet hours of the night, and yet from where you stand, it seems impossible. The doors remain closed. The answers appear delayed. The situation looks unchanged, but I want you to hear this with absolute certainty. God knows what you want, even when it seems impossible. Before you ever formed the words in prayer, He already understood the cry of your heart. Before the problem ever appeared, He already saw the solution. He is not reacting to your circumstances. He is ruling over them. What feels overwhelming to you is not intimidating to Him. What seems final to you is not permanent in His sight. Sometimes we assume that because something is difficult for us, it must be difficult for God. But there is no such thing as hard for the Almighty. The same power that set the stars in place, that formed the mountains, that commands the seas, is the power that is at work in your life. Your impossibility is simply an opportunity for Him to demonstrate His sufficiency. Now, that does not mean the waiting is easy. Waiting exposes our fears. Waiting forces us to confront whether we truly trust Him or whether we were only trusting the outcome. When you pray for something and it does not happen immediately, you are faced with a choice. Will you continue to believe in His goodness, or will you surrender to discouragement? The truth is, God's delays are not His denials. Many times what feels like silence is actually preparation. He is aligning circumstances. He is shaping your character. He is removing obstacles you cannot see. If He gave you what you wanted too soon, you might not be ready to sustain it. If He answered before the appointed time, you might miss the greater blessing He has planned. Consider this. Your desire may be genuine, but His vision is eternal. You are focused on the immediate relief. He is focused on your lifelong transformation. You are asking for a change in your situation. He may be working to change you first, and often that inner work is the very thing that unlocks the outer breakthrough. When something seems impossible, fear whispers that it will never happen. Doubt tells you that you are foolish to keep hoping. The enemy loves to magnify the size of the obstacle and minimize the power of God. But faith does the opposite. Faith magnifies God and shrinks the obstacle. Faith says, I cannot see how, but I know who. There is a difference between wishful thinking and biblical faith. Wishful thinking depends on circumstances. Faith depends on character, the character of God. And His character has never changed. He is faithful. He is sovereign. He is loving. He is wise. He does not overlook your tears. He does not ignore your prayers. He does not forget your longing. Sometimes what you want feels impossible because you have reached the end of your own strength. And that is precisely where God does His greatest work. As long as you believe you can fix it, control it, or manipulate it, you may rely more on yourself than on Him. But when you come to the place where you say, Lord, I cannot do this, you are standing on holy ground. You are in a position of surrender. And surrender invites divine intervention. It is important to remember that God not only knows what you want, He also knows what you need. And sometimes those two are not identical. You may want immediate success, but you need perseverance. You may want comfort, but you need courage. You may want recognition, but you need humility. His wisdom surpasses your understanding, yet there are times when the very thing you desire is aligned with His will. It is something He placed in your heart. That dream, that vision, that burden, it did not originate with you alone. He planted it there. And if He planted it, He has a purpose for it. The question is not whether He is aware of it. The question is whether you are willing to trust His process. Faith is not passive. It does not sit idly by. It prays, it obeys, it prepares. If you are believing for an opportunity, prepare yourself as if it is coming. If you are asking for restoration, cultivate forgiveness in your heart. If you are praying for provision, practice faithfulness with what you already have. Trusting God includes aligning your actions with your belief. You must also guard your heart against comparison. When you see others receiving what you have been praying for, it can be discouraging. But God's timing for your life is uniquely designed. He is not late. He is not distracted. He is not favoring someone else over you. He is writing a story that fits your calling, your capacity, and your character. When the situation seems impossible, remind yourself of this. Impossibility is a human measurement, not a divine one. What you call impossible, God calls an opportunity. What you see as a dead end, He sees as a doorway. What looks like a mountain, He sees as something that can move at His command. Do not let the size of the challenge determine the size of your faith. Instead, let the greatness of your God determine the depth of your confidence. Keep praying, keep trusting, keep obeying. Even when you see no evidence, continue to believe. Faith is not based on what you see, it is based on who He is. And even if the answer comes in a way you did not expect, trust that it will be better than what you imagined. God's plans are not limited by your expectations. He is able to do far beyond what you can ask or think. The impossibility you face today may become the testimony you share tomorrow. So when your heart whispers that it will never happen, answer it with truth. When doubt rises, counter it with faith. When fear tries to take control, surrender again to the one who holds all things together. He knows your deepest desire. He understands the weight you carry. He sees the tears you hide, and He is working even now on your behalf. Trust Him in the waiting. Trust Him in the uncertainty. Trust Him when the road looks closed and the outcome seems unreachable. Because the God who placed that desire within you is more than capable of bringing it to pass in His perfect time and in His perfect way. There is something deeply comforting about knowing that God understands you completely. Long before you ever formed the words of a prayer, before you tried to explain your feelings to anyone else, He already knew. He knows the desires you speak openly, and He knows the ones you barely dare to whisper. He understands the dreams that stir your heart, the goals that keep you awake at night, and even the longings you have pushed aside because they felt too fragile or too impossible. Sometimes we think we must explain everything perfectly in prayer, as if God requires a detailed report before He can respond. But He does not need a polished presentation. He does not require eloquent language. He sees beyond the words. He looks into the heart. He understands not only what you are asking for, but why you are asking for it. He sees the motive, the hurt, the hope, and the faith behind every request. There are moments when you may not even know exactly what you want. You only feel a restlessness, a deep stirring, or a quiet ache. You sense that something is missing, that there is more ahead, that there is a need for change. Even in that uncertainty, God knows. He understands the unspoken desires that you cannot fully define. He interprets the sighs, the tears, and the silent prayers of your heart. This truth should change the way you view your circumstances. If God truly knows what you want, then you are never overlooked, you are never invisible, you are never forgotten in the crowd of humanity. The Creator of the universe is personally aware of your individual story. He is attentive to your life in ways that are both intimate and intentional. When you feel misunderstood by others, remember that He understands completely. People may misinterpret your ambitions, they may question your decisions, they may not grasp the depth of your struggles, but God does. He sees the full picture, your past experiences, your present pressures, and your future potential. His knowledge of you is not partial, it is perfect. There is also great security in knowing that His awareness is not passive. He does not merely observe your desires from a distance. He cares about them. He values what matters to you. If it concerns you, it concerns Him. Your longing for peace, your desire for reconciliation, your hope for opportunity, these are not insignificant in His eyes. However, understanding that God knows your desires also requires humility. Because He sees the full picture, He also knows when a desire needs refinement. Sometimes what we want is shaped by fear, insecurity, or comparison. Sometimes our dreams are influenced by pressure from others rather than by divine purpose. In His loving wisdom, God sifts through our desires. He strengthens the ones that align with His will and gently reshapes the ones that do not. You may wonder why certain prayers seem unanswered. If God knows what you want, why does it not happen immediately? The answer is often found in His deeper knowledge. He not only knows what you want today, but He knows what will truly fulfill you tomorrow. He understands the long-term impact of every blessing, every opportunity, and every relationship. What looks good in the moment may not be best for your destiny. Because He knows you completely, He also knows your capacity. He knows how much responsibility you can handle. He knows how success might affect your character. He knows the timing that will protect you rather than harm you. His knowledge is protective, not restrictive. When He withholds something, it is never out of indifference, but out of wisdom. There are times when your desire aligns perfectly with His plan, yet the path still feels slow. Even then, His awareness brings comfort. He sees your faithfulness in the waiting. He sees your obedience when no one applauds. He sees your quiet perseverance. Nothing escapes His notice. Every act of trust, every step of obedience, every moment of endurance is recorded in His sight. You do not have to strive to prove yourself worthy of His attention. You already have it. You do not have to compete for His care. You already possess it. His knowledge of you is not based on performance, but on relationship. He formed you. He understands your temperament, your strengths, your weaknesses, and your unique calling. When doubt begins to whisper that your dreams are too small or too large, return to this truth. God knows. When fear suggests that your longing is unrealistic, remember that the one who placed purpose within you is fully aware of what He intends to accomplish through you. When discouragement tells you that your prayers are unheard, stand firm in the assurance that they were heard before they were even spoken. Let this awareness deepen your trust. Speak honestly with Him. Share your hopes without reservation. Bring your disappointments without shame. He is not surprised by your humanity. He is not overwhelmed by your emotions. He welcomes your authenticity because He already sees what lies beneath the surface. Knowing that God understands the deepest desires of your heart should give you peace in uncertainty and confidence in prayer. It should remind you that you are not navigating life alone. The one who sees the beginning and the end is fully aware of the journey in between. And because He knows your heart so completely, you can rest in the assurance that your life is in capable, loving hands. There are seasons in life when the word impossible feels painfully accurate. You look at your situation and see no way forward. The numbers do not add up. The relationship appears beyond repair. The diagnosis sounds final. The opportunity seems permanently closed. From every human angle, the conclusion is the same. It cannot happen. But what you call impossible is simply a measurement based on your limitations. It is the conclusion of finite reasoning. It is the result of analyzing circumstances through human strength, human resources, and human understanding. God does not operate within those boundaries. His ability is not confined by what you can calculate, predict, or imagine. When something seems impossible to you, it is usually because you have reached the edge of your own power. You have tried what you know to try. You have exhausted your options. You have searched for solutions and found none. And that is precisely the point where faith becomes essential, because faith begins where human ability ends. If your situation could be solved entirely by your effort, you would be tempted to take the credit. You would rely on strategy rather than surrender. But when you face something that clearly exceeds your strength, you are invited to depend on a strength greater than your own. What appears to be an obstacle may actually be an opportunity for God to reveal His power in unmistakable ways. Think about how often fear exaggerates impossibility. Fear magnifies the problem and minimizes God. It whispers that the odds are too high, the gap too wide, the damage too severe. It tells you that you have missed your chance, that time has run out, that it is too late. But fear does not speak with authority. It speaks from insecurity. Faith acknowledges the difficulty, but refuses to define the outcome by it. Faith does not deny reality. It simply refuses to let reality have the final word. It recognizes that what is beyond human capacity is not beyond divine capability. You must understand that God is not intimidated by complexity. He is not confused by complications. He is not overwhelmed by crises. The very things that leave you anxious are fully understood by Him. He sees the intricate details of every circumstance. He knows the hidden factors, the unseen influences, and the future developments that you cannot perceive. When you look at a closed door, you see finality. God may see redirection. When you see loss, He may see preparation. When you see a dead end, He may see a new beginning that is not yet unfolded. Your perspective is limited by time. His perspective encompasses eternity. Often, what makes something feel impossible is the timeline you have created. You may believe that it must happen now, in this way, according to this plan. When it does not unfold as expected, you assume it will never happen. But God's power is not restricted to your schedule. He works according to perfect timing, not pressured urgency. There is also the matter of scale. You measure the size of your challenge against your own resources. God measures nothing against scarcity. He is not limited by supply, opportunity, or human cooperation. He can create a path where none exists. He can provide in ways you never anticipated. He can restore what you thought was permanently lost. The history of faith is filled with situations that looked hopeless. Yet again and again, what seemed final was overturned. Not because people were strong, but because God was faithful. Not because circumstances were favorable, but because divine intervention changed the narrative. This does not mean every desire will unfold exactly as imagined. Sometimes the impossibility is removed in a different way than you expected. Sometimes the miracle is internal before it becomes external. Sometimes the transformation happens in your heart before it happens in your situation. But even then, what appeared impossible, peace in chaos, strength in weakness, hope in despair, becomes reality through His presence. You must guard against allowing repeated disappointment to redefine your belief system. If you experience setbacks, it is easy to assume that nothing will ever change. But past outcomes do not limit future possibilities with God. He is not bound by your history. He is not constrained by your previous failures. His power is fresh, active, and available. When you face something that appears immovable, shift your focus. Instead of staring at the mountain, look to the one who created it. Instead of rehearsing the problem, meditate on His power. Instead of calculating the odds, remember His authority. The size of your obstacle does not determine the size of His ability. Impossibility is often the setting for the greatest testimonies. When there is no logical explanation, the outcome cannot be attributed to coincidence. When there is no visible path, the breakthrough points unmistakably to divine involvement. God specializes in situations where His power is undeniable. Do not allow the word impossible to silence your prayers. Do not let the appearance of finality extinguish your hope. Continue to believe that what you cannot do, He can. Continue to trust that what you cannot see, He already understands. Continue to hold on when the evidence suggests letting go, because what is impossible with man is never impossible with God. And when you learn to view your circumstances through that lens, fear loses its authority, doubt loses its grip, and faith rises to take its rightful place in your heart. Waiting is one of the most difficult experiences in the life of faith. It stretches your patience, tests your confidence, and exposes the true condition of your heart. When you have prayed sincerely and believed deeply, yet nothing appears to change, the silence can feel heavy. You may begin to question whether you were heard, whether you misunderstood God's will, or whether the answer will ever come. But waiting is not a sign of rejection. It is often a sign of preparation. When God delays, He is not dismissing your desire. He is developing your character. There are qualities that cannot be formed in comfort or immediacy. Perseverance is built in delay. Trust is strengthened in uncertainty. Spiritual maturity grows in seasons where you must rely on Him without visible evidence. If every prayer were answered instantly, your faith would remain shallow. It is in the waiting that your roots grow deeper. Preparation often happens beneath the surface where you cannot see it. Just as a seed develops underground before it breaks through the soil, God is working in ways that are hidden from your view. You may see no progress, but that does not mean nothing is happening. Circumstances are being arranged. Obstacles are being removed. Details are being aligned. And just as importantly, your heart is being refined. Sometimes you are waiting for a door to open, while God is preparing you to walk through it responsibly. If the opportunity arrived too soon, you might mishandle it. If the blessing came prematurely, you might lack the wisdom to sustain it. God's timing is protective. He sees the full picture and understands the consequences of every step. His delay is not careless. It is calculated with purpose. Waiting also reveals where your trust truly rests. If your peace disappears the moment the answer is delayed, it may indicate that your confidence was in the outcome rather than in God Himself. The waiting season gently shifts your focus. It invites you to value His presence more than His provision. It teaches you to find security in who He is, not merely in what He gives. There is a refining aspect to waiting that shapes your motives. In the beginning, you may desire something intensely, but over time, God may purify that desire. He may remove pride, selfish ambition, or unrealistic expectations. He may replace anxiety with patience and fear with faith. By the time the answer arrives, you are no longer the same person who first prayed the prayer. You are steadier, humbler, and more prepared. Waiting can also be a season of strengthening. When you continue to pray despite silence, your spiritual endurance grows. When you choose obedience even without immediate reward, your integrity deepens. When you resist the temptation to take shortcuts, your character becomes anchored. These are not small victories. They are foundational qualities that will support you when greater responsibilities come. It is important to understand that God's perspective on time is different from yours. What feels like a long delay to you may be a brief moment in His eternal plan. He sees how each season connects to the next. He knows how today's waiting will position you for tomorrow's opportunity. Nothing in His timing is accidental. Every pause has purpose. During waiting seasons, discouragement often tries to take root. You may compare your timeline to someone else's and wonder why their breakthrough came sooner. But your journey is uniquely designed. God is not rushing your story to match someone else's. He is crafting something specific to your calling and capacity. Comparison only clouds your ability to see His faithfulness in your own life. The waiting period is also a time for active faith. It is not passive resignation. While you wait, you continue to pray. You continue to obey. You continue to grow. You prepare as though the answer is coming because you trust that it is. Waiting does not mean doing nothing. It means trusting while you move forward with what He has already placed in your hands. There are moments when waiting feels like standing in the dark, uncertain of what lies ahead. But even in the darkness, God is present. He is not absent simply because you cannot see the outcome. Often it is in those quiet, hidden seasons that your relationship with Him becomes more intimate. You learn to recognize His voice. You learn to depend on His guidance. You learn that He is enough even before the answer arrives. Waiting teaches surrender. It gently reminds you that you are not in control of every detail. It invites you to release the timeline and trust the author of your life. That surrender is not weakness, it is strength. It is the acknowledgement that His wisdom surpasses your understanding. When the answer finally comes, you often look back and realize that the waiting was essential. You see how you were protected from premature decisions. You recognize how your faith was fortified. You understand how certain circumstances had to align perfectly. What once felt like delay now reveals itself as divine precision. In the middle of waiting, hold on to the assurance that you are not forgotten. The silence is not abandonment. The pause is not punishment. It is preparation. And when you trust Him in the waiting, you position yourself to receive not only the blessing you desire, but also the growth that ensures you can carry it with wisdom, gratitude, and faith. Faith is often misunderstood as a feeling, an emotional surge of optimism when circumstances seem favorable. But true faith is much deeper than emotion. It is a deliberate choice to trust God's character when circumstances suggest otherwise. It is a steady confidence rooted not in what you see, but in who He is. And that kind of faith requires trust, obedience, and surrender. Trust begins with understanding God's nature. You cannot genuinely trust someone you do not believe is reliable. Faith grows as you become convinced of His integrity, His wisdom, and His love. When you know that He is good, even when life is not, your heart finds stability. When you believe that He is sovereign, even when events seem chaotic, your fear begins to loosen its grip. Yet trust is tested when answers are delayed or outcomes are unclear. It is easy to say you trust God when everything is going well. It is far more challenging to maintain that trust when doors close, when plans unravel, or when the path ahead is uncertain. In those moments, faith becomes a daily decision. You choose to believe that He is still working, even when you cannot trace His hand. Obedience is the practical expression of trust. It is one thing to say you believe, it is another to align your actions with that belief. Obedience often requires stepping forward without full understanding. It means doing what is right even when it is uncomfortable. It means following His guidance even when it leads you away from family, clarity, and into uncertainty. There are times when obedience may seem small and unnoticed. You continue to pray even when answers are not visible. You maintain integrity even when compromise appears easier. You extend forgiveness even when resentment feels justified. These choices may not attract attention, but they reflect a heart anchored in faith. Faithful obedience does not guarantee immediate results. In fact, sometimes obedience precedes the breakthrough by a long season. But every step taken in alignment with God's will strengthens your spiritual foundation. It builds resilience. It deepens your dependence. It positions you to recognize His hand when the answer finally arrives. Surrender is perhaps the most challenging aspect of faith. It requires releasing control over outcomes. It means acknowledging that you cannot orchestrate every detail of your life. Surrender does not imply passivity. Rather, it reflects confidence that God's plans are better than your own. It is the willingness to say, "Not my will, but yours," even when your own plans feel compelling. Control often gives the illusion of security. You may believe that if you plan carefully enough, work hard enough, or anticipate every possibility, you can guarantee success. But life frequently disrupts even the most meticulous plans. Surrender frees you from the exhausting burden of trying to manage everything. It shifts the weight from your shoulders to His. When you surrender, you also release the fear of failure. You understand that your responsibility is obedience, not outcome. You are called to be faithful, not flawless. God is responsible for the results. This perspective brings peace because it removes the pressure to produce what only He can provide. Faith also requires perseverance. There will be moments when doubt attempts to infiltrate your thoughts. You may question whether your boost is misplaced. You may wonder if surrender has cost you too much. But perseverance reminds you that faith is not built in a single decision. It is cultivated through consistent reliance over time. The more you trust, obey, and surrender, the more you experience the faithfulness of God. You begin to see patterns of His provision. You recognize how closed doors protected you. You understand how detours redirected you towards something better. Each experience reinforces your confidence in His character. It is important to remember that faith does not eliminate emotion. You may still feel fear, disappointment, or uncertainty. Faith does not deny those feelings. It simply refuses to let them dictate your decisions. You acknowledge your emotions, but you anchor your choices in truth. There is also a quiet strength that emerges when you walk by faith. You become less reactive to temporary setbacks. You are not easily shaken by criticism or comparison. Your identity becomes rooted in something deeper than external approval or visible success. Faith steadies you when circumstances fluctuate. Trust, obedience, and surrender are not one-time acts. They are ongoing practices. Each day presents new opportunities to rely on God rather than on yourself. Each challenge invites you to deepen your trust. Each decision allows you to demonstrate obedience. Each uncertainty offers a chance to surrender again. As you grow in faith, you begin to see that God's will is not a restrictive path, but a liberating one. His guidance is not meant to limit you, but to lead you into fullness. The more you entrust your life to Him, the more you discover that His plans exceed your expectations. Faith transforms the way you approach the impossible. Instead of shrinking back, you step forward with quiet confidence. Instead of striving anxiously, you rest in assurance. Instead of clinging tightly to your own plans, you open your hands and allow Him to lead. And in that posture of trust, obedience, and surrender, you find a deeper relationship with the one who knows your desires, governs your circumstances, and holds your future securely in His hands. As we reflect on everything that has been said, it all comes back to this unshakable truth. You are not alone in your longing, and you are not forgotten in your waiting. The desires that rest in your heart are not hidden from God. The impossibilities that stand before you are not intimidating to Him. The delays that test your patience are not signs of abandonment. And the call to trust, obey, and surrender is not a burden. It is an invitation into deeper intimacy with Him. Life will present moments when your faith feels stretched thin. There will be seasons when the silence seems louder than the answers, when the obstacles look larger than your hope, and when the timeline feels far longer than you expected. But through every high and every low, God remains constant. His knowledge of you is complete. His power over your circumstances is absolute. His timing is precise, and His love for you is unwavering. When you cannot see the way forward, remember that He already stands at the end of the journey. When you feel overwhelmed by what you cannot control, remember that nothing is beyond His authority. When you grow weary in the waiting, remember that He is using this very season to prepare you for what lies ahead. Every prayer you have whispered, every tear you have shed, every moment you have chosen to trust instead of give up, none of it has been wasted. What seems impossible today may become tomorrow's testimony. What feels like delay may turn out to be divine protection. What appears to be silence may actually be sacred preparation. God is not only aware of what you want, He is actively working in ways you cannot yet see. His plans for you are not fragile, they are not uncertain, they are anchored in His wisdom and carried out in His perfect timing. So do not lose heart. Keep praying when you see no movement. Keep trusting when you do not understand. Keep obeying when it would be easier to compromise. Keep surrendering when control feels tempting. Because faith is not about having all the answers. It is about knowing the one who does. Stand firm in the confidence that your life is in the hands of a faithful God who knows your deepest desires, who specializes in the impossible, who uses waiting as preparation, and who honors trust that is rooted in obedience and surrender. And when all is said and done, may you walk forward with unwavering faith, knowing that the God who placed the desire in your heart is more than able to fulfill it in His perfect way and in His perfect time.